thanks. I was so excited when I heard that Kath was going to be here because Kath has had a huge influence on my life and my work. And over the years, we've become very good friends, even though we hardly ever get to see each other, because my only regret now is that she lives in Florida and I live in California. But still, I wanted to publicly acknowledge Kath for her influence. And I want to ask you, were any of you raised by perfect parents? Anybody? Are any of you perfect parents? Okay. Well, good, you're in the right place. Because it's amazing how sometimes we beat up on ourselves when we're not perfect, but nobody is. And how many of you sometimes just love being a parent? You just love it. And how many of you sometimes don't like it at all? Okay? So, again, you're in the right place because there's just no such thing as a perfect parent. And I think that it's very important to establish that because sometimes people go away hearing all kinds of good ideas, and they go away feeling guilty. And it's not about feeling guilty, it's just about learning. And again, I would like to acknowledge you all for being here because it's usually the parents who are already doing the best job that are interested in learning to do even more and to be better. And so I want to just share this little cartoon with you where Calvin brings this piece of paper to his dad and says, "Here, Dad, I'd like to have you sign this and have it notarized." And Dad reads, "I, the undersigned dad, attest that I have never parented before. And insofar as I have no experience in the job, I agree to pay for any counseling in perpetuity that Calvin may require as a result of my parental ineptitude." And then you see Calvin sitting in timeout saying, "I don't see how you're allowed to have a kid without signing one of those." And the reason that is so funny is because what is the most important job in the world? And what is the job that we have the least training for? Parenting. And again, I just have to acknowledge you for being here because we know that we need training whether we want to be a bricklayer or a brain surgeon. And yet all those parents who aren't here, not all of them, but a lot of them are thinking, nobody's going to tell me how to raise my kids. And it's not about telling you how, it's about getting as much education as you can and then taking it into your heart and your wisdom and applying it from there. So what I want to just suggest to you is that I would like you to all think for a minute about what kind of an influence do you hope to be on your children? What kind of characteristics and life skills do you hope to help them develop? And think about your child coming home for a visit and sitting at your dinner table 25 years from now. What kind of a person do you hope is sitting there at that table? And in our workshops, we have people do a whole list, first of all, of the challenges, and then what it is they want for their children. And as you look at this list, you'll see things like some of the problems that parents have is they won't listen, they backtalk, the lack of motivation, foul language, interrupting homework. You can read the list. How many of you have some of those challenges with your kids? Let's see your hands. Okay, now, this list of what they want for the future, usually we brainstorm this so that it comes from the audience that they're always the same. They're so similar. Things like self-discipline, responsibility, accountability, self-confidence and courage, problem solvers. You can see the list. So would you agree that that's a list that you would like to be influential in helping your children to develop? Okay, so now what I'm going to suggest to you is that you can take the challenges and use them as opportunities to teach these social and life skills. And I'm going to demonstrate that for you by let's taking the one that's on the top of the list and where I'm getting this echo. Is it because I'm standing in the wrong place? Where am I supposed to stand? It'll train me where I'm supposed to stand. But I want to take when parents say, "My child won't listen." But first I want to ask you, when parents say, "My child won't listen," what do they really mean? Yeah, why won't my child obey? And the other thing is when parents tell me that my child won't listen, they've already given me a clue that they're not giving their children a very good example of what listening is all about. And you know why? Parents talk. They talk too much. So Usually we are talking, we're going with the mouth, and I usually have my little wind-up teeth that I like to show chattering. We tell kids what happened. We tell them what caused it to happen. We tell them how they should feel about it. We tell them what they should do about it. We tell them what they talk. And what do children do when your neighbors talk too much? They just zone out. And if you're ever looking at a child, if you weren't having so much fun with your lecture, you'd be looking at them going like, they're gone. And the only reason they're looking at you is because you say, you look at me when I'm talking to you. So they'll look, but if you look closely, they're gone. So what I want to demonstrate for you is that we need to stop trying to stuff in, because so that it just goes in one ear and out the other. And what we need to do is learn how to draw forth. And do you know that the root of education is educare, which means to draw forth? So we're going to do a little activity here that really demonstrates this, and I need 18 people to come down here really quick. I need 9 people to line up over here and 9 people to line up over here. Come on down. And then I need someone to be a child. So I need somebody else to come be a child. So would you pass these down the line and make sure that they're in order, 1, 2, 3. And actually, I want you to kind of go at an angle this way. And if you'll pass these strips down, you're going to have your scripts. You take 1 and 2, 3, and then go kind of at an angle like this. Now I need my child. Doesn't matter. No, I want an adult to play a child. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, I was going to have you go back and forth, but because of the way this is, I'm going to have you go first down. Let me see which line you are. Okay. You don't have to say anything. I just want you to go, as you talk to each person, I want you to hold this in front of their mouth, the microphone, and listen to what they say. And all you have to do is notice, what are you thinking? Pretend you're a child. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? And what are you deciding? Now, before she does this, I just want to say something about deciding. Do you know that children are always making decisions at a subconscious level about, am I good, am I bad? Am I capable, am I not capable? And based on that, what am I going to do? And that means what they're deciding about what they're going to do based on what they do. As Adler used to say, watch the movement. Watch what children do, and then you'll know what they're deciding. So I'm going to have you first just go down here and listen to each one of them. Notice what you're thinking, feeling, and deciding as a child.
Do you want me to comment after each one?
No, I don't want you to say anything until you come back and talk to me.
Okay.
Go brush your teeth.
Don't forget your coat.
Go to bed.
Stop fighting with your brother.
Put your dishes in the dishwasher.
Do your homework.
Hurry up and get dressed or you'll miss the bus.
Stop whining.
Pick up your toys.
Okay. How many of you can tell what she's thinking, feeling, just by her body language? Okay, but now, just tell us a little bit. As that kid, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you deciding?
I'm thinking I don't want to do anything. I'm deciding that I'm going to not do it. And I'm feeling really tired and exhausted. And I'm irritated. And I kind of want to scream.
Okay. All right. So now what I want you to do is go down and listen to these parents.
What do you need to do so your teeth won't feel scuzzy?
What are you taking so you won't be cold outside?
What is next in your bedtime routine?
What is your plan for doing your homework?
What can you and your brother do to solve this problem?
How can you help with your dishes when you've finished eating?
What do you need to do so you can catch the bus on time?
What words can you use so I can hear you?
What is your responsibility when you're finished playing with your toys?
Okay, now, what are you thinking, feeling?
You know what? I feel really powerful. And I'm thinking about things, and I'm almost excited. Like, yeah, what can I do? It feels good.
In fact, I want to show you something here. Let me see if I can remember. As you look at at this list, let me just ask you, can you see anything up there that you're developing as a kid?
Yes, I feel very powerful, very capable, and I feel creative because wow, what can I do? Oh, there's so many options. I'm thinking.
Okay. Oh, there. This is what's so interesting. I'm just so glad she said that, and I didn't tell her to. But you know how you get somebody who just sets it up perfectly. This is a physiological thing. When somebody tells you what to do, if you're paying attention to your body, you'll feel it get kind of tight, and the message that goes to your brain is resist. On the other hand, when somebody asks you a question respectfully, physiologically your body relaxes, and the message that goes to your brain is search for an answer. And so, let's just give these people a hand. Thank you very much. Would somebody collect okay, thanks. So what I wanted to do is just show you one very simple tool that can make a huge difference. But what I'm going to suggest is that you don't go home and start asking questions. Just notice how often you tell, and put $1 in a jar every time you tell your kid to do something. I bet you could all go to Hawaii in about a week. But then at the end of that time, or actually even during that time, start noticing what could you have done that would ask a question that would invite a child to think and to feel more like cooperating, to feel more capable, to start developing that sense of wanting to contribute and self-discipline. And the other thing, though, is do you think this would work with every child, every time, for every situation? It's very important that you know that you have to have a whole tool bag full of tools that work at different times. But the point is to do things that are more inviting for children. And, positive discipline, and I know that redirecting children's behavior, because we came from the same roots, the Adler and Dreikers, and they're based on being kind and firm at the same time. And I will tell you that I've been noticing that there are a lot of parents today are either too kind or too firm. And when you're being too kind, that is being too permissive. And when you're being too firm, that's being too authoritarian. Neither one is healthy for children. And also, have you ever noticed that opposites attract? You notice that? And what happens is that somebody who is slightly lenient will marry somebody who is slightly strict. But then this lenient person feels like he or she has to be more lenient to make up for this mean old strict person. And then the strict person feels like he or she has to be more strict to make up for this wishy-washy lenient person. So then they get further and further apart, and then they fight about who's right and who's wrong. And the truth is that neither is more effective. And so if they could each learn from each other how to be kind and firm at the same time. But it's not always easy. Earlier I was asking if any of you were a perfect parent. I have to tell you, my daughter would have to say no. She was one of my after children. I have 7 children, before, during, and after. And I have the 2 that were raised before I learned about these concepts, and then the 3 that were 3, 5, and 7, and then the 2 that came after. And so that I got to use it with them from the very beginning, most of the time. But my daughter has started giving lectures with me now. And so I'm talking about how positive discipline is never punitive, no blame, no shame, no pain, no punishment at all. And she just pops up and says, well, Mama, how long have you been doing positive discipline? I said, well, for about 30 years. She said, you mean you were doing it even when I was 8 years old? And I said, yeah. She said, well, then why did you chase me through the house with the belt? I said, you must have really provoked me. And, kids can do that. But I think it's because here's another question. Do any of you have a perfect child? Someone who always is, if you have somebody who's a perfect, good child, I want you to see a therapist. Because this is not healthy. Children are born to individuate, and they go through these stages of testing their power and what they can do and what they can't do, and it's very normal. Another question, how many of you have children that your neighbors or your friends say, oh, your child is just such a nice, pleasant, wonderful child to be around? And you're thinking, who? What? You sure you don't have my kid mixed up with somebody else? That also is a sign of really good parenting because they feel safe to test with you. But they're learning. They're learning from you, and then they go out into the world and they use what they're learning from you. So if we can remember to be both kind and firm at the same time. And again, I love it when I have cartoons that illustrate this, and you'll see the mom and the child in this fight where she's saying no, and he says yes, and he says no, and she says yes. And then she remembers to be kind, and she picks him up and gives him a hug. And then she says no, and he says, okay. And then he says, a hugging no isn't fair. Well, a hugging no may not be fair, but it is so effective. And it's what Kath was talking about, these little gas tanks. I call it connection before correction. Because even brain science shows that you can't learn when you're upset. You can only learn when you're feeling connected, when you're feeling that sense of belonging and significance. So sometimes just to, when you're upset, give a hug. Now sometimes kids aren't ready for a hug and neither are you. But I know that with my daughter, with her kids, they'll say, are you ready for a hug? And come find me when you're ready. And maybe just to leave for a while. So how many of you have heard even a couple of things today, all day, with all the speakers that you'd really like to go home and try? But have you ever noticed that it's often easier said than done? And why is it so hard? Do you know it's because you have buttons? And guess who knows what they are? And how to push them. And do you know what happens when your buttons get pushed? You go into your reptilian brain, and reptiles eat their young. Now, fortunately, we're a little bit above the reptiles, but actually, before I talk about this, I think I have time to do a really quick little thing for you that I think will help a lot. And this is from Daniel Siegel's book, Parenting from the Inside Out. But I also want to teach you something about the brain. So would you all raise your hand like this? Because I'm going to give you, this is a model of the brain. And from the palm of your hand down to your wrist, this is the primitive brain, or the reptilian brain. And when you put, that's the old fight-flight response, you know, you put your thumb in the middle of your palm, that is the medulla, or the midbrain. And that also, it works with the fight-flight response, but it's based a lot on some of those old stored memories of I'm not good enough, or our fears, or whatever they are. Now bring your fingers down over your thumb, and you've got the cortex. And you know, the cortex, especially the prefrontal cortex, is the only place where thinking takes place. And where it's your emotions, I mean your rational, your judgment, your social consciousness, it's all these good things. But when you get upset, do you know what happens? You flip your lid. So what's exposed? The old memories of inadequacy and fear and fight, flight. And because of mirror neurons, if you flip your lid, your kid's going to flip their lid. Or if they flip their lid first and you flip yours in advance, what have you got? A time to talk rationally and say, oh, this is so helpful, I could just hardly wait to hear more, and I appreciate so much all that you're teaching me. So this is why sometimes we have to wait and take some positive time out. Is my time up? Oh, okay. All right, so let me just say that mistakes are wonderful opportunities to learn. And so whenever you make a mistake, just learn to apologize. And last quote is, do your eyes light up when they walk into the room? This is a quote by Toni Morrison that I just appreciate so much, because that really is what kids are all about and the love we have for them. Just so take that time to let your eyes light up when they walk into the room. Thank you.